What's up, y'all? It's Evan from DMV Sports Zone giving you another update on all things DMV sports. As always, we start with college football and the Maryland Terrapins. So Maryland came off a bye this past week, but it wasn't too good for them up in the frozen tundra. They fell 23-10 at Wisconsin. It's a season low for the Terps in scoring, the first time they've scored below 25 points this season. The loss drops the Terrapins to 6-3, 3-3 in the Big Ten. That's good for fourth place in the East Division. Up next for the Terps, they head to Happy Valley to take on the 15th ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State comes in at 7-2, 4-2 in the Big Ten. That's good for third place in the East Division. The Nittany Lions are coming off a resounding 45-14 win at Indiana, thanks to 38 unanswered points. Before the run, they were tied 7-7 with the Hoosiers. Up next, let's talk about the Navy midshipmen. So Navy also had a low-scoring affair. They fell 20-10 at Cincinnati, and the loss drops the midshipmen to 3-6, 3-4 in the American Athletic Conference. That's good for seventh place in the conference standings. Navy is now one loss away from being eliminated from bowl contention. The Mids will try to avoid that fate this week when they return home to host the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame comes in at 6-3, and the Fighting Irish are coming off an upset 35-14 win over number 4 Clemson in a game in which Notre Dame never trailed. Up next, let's talk about the Virginia Cavaliers. So Virginia, it was a hard-fought battle, but ultimately they fell up just short, 31-28 the final against number 17 North Carolina. The loss drops the Cavaliers to 3-6, 1-5 in the ACC. That's good for last place in the Coastal Division. And Virginia is now one loss away from being eliminated from bowl contention, just like Navy. The Wahoos will try to avoid that fate this week when they host the Pittsburgh Panthers. Pitt comes in at 5-4, 2-3 in the ACC. That's good for fourth place in the Coastal Division. The Panthers are coming off a 19-9 upset win of their own over number 20 Syracuse, in which they held the Orange to just 145 yards of total offense. And we wrap up the college football segment with the Virginia Tech Hokies. So for Virginia Tech, it was another hard-fought battle, but they came up just short, falling 28-27 to Georgia Tech. The loss drops the Hokies to 2-7, 1-5 in the ACC. That's good for sixth place in the Coastal Division, ahead of only Virginia. But more importantly, Virginia Tech is now eliminated from bowl contention. Up next for the Hokies, they head to Durham to take on the Duke Blue Devils. Duke comes in at 6-3, 3-2 in the ACC. That's good for second place in the Coastal Division, behind only North Carolina. The Blue Devils are coming off a 38-31 win at Boston College. Now we transition to hockey and the Washington Capitals. So for the Caps, it was just a nightmare of a week with a couple more players going down to the injured list, and it capped off with a 3-2 loss to the Coyotes on Saturday. And that loss drops the Caps to 5-6-2. That's good for 12 points and sixth place in the Metropolitan Division. Washington has now lost 4 in a row. So here's the week ahead for the Caps. For the Capitals, the week begins tonight when they host the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers come in at 7-5. That's good for 14 points and fourth place in the Pacific Division. Edmonton's coming off a 6-2 loss against the Stars on Saturday. They've lost 2 in a row. This is the first of 2 between the Caps and the Oilers. Last season, Edmonton swept the season series against Washington. On Wednesday, the Capitals welcome in their arch rival, the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins are currently 4-6-2, 10 points, and 7th place in the Metropolitan Division, ahead of only Columbus. Pittsburgh's coming off a 3-2 loss against the Kraken on Saturday. They've lost 7 in a row. This is the first of 3 between the Caps and the Pens. Last season, Washington took 3 out of 4 against Pittsburgh. On Friday, the Capitals welcome in the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning are currently 7-4-1. That's good for 15 points and 4th in the Atlantic Division. Tampa Bay is coming off a 5-3 win over the Sabres on Saturday in a game which they scored the last 3 goals after trailing 3-2 in the third period. This is the first of 3 between the Caps and the Bolts. Last season, Tampa took 2 out of 3 against Washington. And for the Capitals, the week concludes on Sunday when they head to Tampa Bay to take on those very same Lightning. The same information I just said still applies, except this will be the second of 3 between the Caps and the Bolts. Now we transition to the NBA and the Washington Wizards. So for the Wizards, it was a hard-fought battle, but they fell just short, 103-97 in Memphis on Sunday. The loss drops the Wizards to 4-6. They're tied with Brooklyn, Philadelphia, and Miami for 9th place in the Eastern Conference, and they've lost 2 in a row. So here's the week ahead for Washington. For the Wizards, the week begins tonight when they head to Charlotte to take on the Hornets. The Hornets come in at 3-7, 13th place in the Eastern Conference. Charlotte's coming off a 98-94 loss against the Nets on Saturday. They've lost 4 in a row. This is the first of 4 between the Wiz and the Hornets. Last season, Charlotte took 3 out of 4 against Washington. On Thursday, the Wizards return home to host the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks are currently 5-3, sixth place in the Western Conference. Dallas is coming off a 111-110 win over the Raptors on Friday. They've won 3 in a row. This is the first of 2 between the Wiz and the Mavs. Last season, Washington swept the season series against Dallas. On Sunday, the Wizards welcome in the Utah Jazz. The Jazz are currently 8-3, second in the West behind only Phoenix. Utah's coming off a 110-102 win in LA on Sunday. They've won 2 in a row. This is the first of 2 between the Wiz and the Jazz. Last season, Washington and Utah split a pair, with the road team winning both. And for the Wizards, the week concludes on Sunday when they welcome in the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are currently 7-3, third place in the West. Memphis is coming off that 103-97 win over the Wizards on Sunday. They've now won 3 in a row. This is the last of 2 between the Wiz and the Grizz. Memphis obviously leads the season series 1-0. Now, obviously, you've seen the thumbnail and you've seen the title of the video. It's time to talk about some college basketball, and we're going to start with the 18th ranked Virginia Cavaliers. So for Virginia, it was kind of a down season last year, 21-14, 12-8 in the ACC, but they missed the NCAA tournament. So this season, Virginia's trying to reclaim the ACC title, make it back to the NCAA tournament, and maybe make a run. So let's see how the season starts for the Wahoos. For Virginia, the season begins tonight when they welcome in the North Carolina Central Eagles. Last season, North Carolina Central went 16-15, 8-5 in the MEAC. They missed the NCAA tournament as the MEAC last year was represented by Norfolk State. And for Virginia, the week concludes on Friday when they welcome in the Monmouth Hawks. Last season, Monmouth went 21-13, 11-9 in the MAAC. They missed the NCAA tournament because the MAAC was represented by, you know them, you love them, St. Peter's. Up next, let's talk about the Maryland Terrapins. So last season was something truly unheard of in College Park, a losing season. As Maryland went 15-17, 7-13 in the Big Ten, they missed the NCAA tournament. So now under new head coach Kevin Willard, the Terps are looking to make it to the tournament for the second time in the last 3 years and maybe make a run. So let's see how the season begins for the Terps. For Maryland, the season begins tonight when they welcome in the Niagara Purple Eagles. Last season, Niagara went 14-16, 9-11 in the MAAC, the same MAAC that plays home to Monmouth from the last segment, but obviously, with the losing record, the Purple Eagles missed the NCAA tournament. And for Maryland, the week concludes on Thursday when they host the Western Carolina Catamounts. Last season, Western Carolina went 11-21, 5-13 in the Southern Conference. They missed the NCAA tournament as the SoCon was represented by Chattanooga. Up next, let's talk about the Georgetown Hoyas, and don't worry guys, this is about as bad as it's going to get for the rest of the video. Last season, Georgetown went 6-25, 0-19 in the Big East. They missed the NCAA tournament, so surely, if nothing else, it can't get worse from here. So here's how this season begins for G-Town. For Georgetown, the week begins on Tuesday when they host the Coppin State Eagles. Last season, Coppin State went 9-23, 6-8 in the MEAC, the same MEAC conference which plays home to their fellow Eagles, North Carolina Central, back from the Virginia segment if you remember them. But obviously, winning just 9 games all season, the Eagles failed to qualify for the NCAA tournament. And for Georgetown, the week concludes on Saturday when they host the Green Bay Phoenix. Green Bay last season went 5-25, 4-16 in the Horizon League. Obviously, they missed the NCAA tournament as the Horizon League was represented by Wright State. And now to wrap up this update, let's talk about the defending ACC champion Virginia Tech Hokies. Last season on their way to the ACC championship, Virginia Tech 23-13, 11-9 in the ACC. They clinched an automatic qualifying bid in the NCAA tournament with their first ever ACC title. Unfortunately for Virginia Tech, it ended a little bit earlier than they would have hoped with an 81-73 loss to Texas in the first round. So here's how this season begins for the Hokies. For Virginia Tech, the season begins tonight when they host the Delaware State Hornets. Last season, Delaware State went 2-25, 0-14 in the MEAC. That again, the same MEAC conference that hosts North Carolina Central and Coppin State, remember them? But obviously winning just 2 games all season, the Hornets missed the NCAA tournament. On Thursday, Virginia Tech welcomes in the Lehigh Mountain Hawks. Last season, Lehigh went 13-19, 10-8 in the Patriot League. They missed the NCAA tournament as the Patriot League was represented by Colgate. And for Virginia Tech, the week concludes on Sunday when they host an in-state foe, the William and Mary Tribe. Last season, William and Mary went 5-27, 4-14 in the CAA. They missed the NCAA tournament as the CAA was represented by Delaware. Well, I know that was a lot, but that's it for this update. Stay tuned for plenty of great content from Noah, Nadi, and Abdullah. They're going to cover our Commanders as they get set for a big Monday night showdown a week from today in Philadelphia against the Eagles. But until next time, I'm Evan from DMV Sports Zone, signing off.